Today we are back looking at some more creepy true crime cases.
This love triangle turned deadly and proves anyone could be living a double life. Gavin Smith was born in California. He was a very talented basketball player from an early age. He went to the University of Hawaii and played for the Rainbow Warriors. He was incredibly gifted at the sport, however, it wasn't just sport he was good at. He dreamed of becoming a successful actor and took on some small roles. In 1989, he met Lisa Smith, who he would marry and have 3 children with. Now, taking all that he had learnt from being in front of the screen, he actually ended up being really successful behind the scenes. He would make loads of money as an exec at 20th Century Fox. However, despite earning a substantial amount, it was reported that he was having financial issues. In 2008, the couple even tried to sell their house to take the pressure off. Some say Gavin started living a double life. He'd become addicted to substances reportedly due to a back injury. This was obviously very costly. He ended up in rehab where he met a woman named Chandrika.
Oh no, it's gonna start here.
The pair began an affair despite them both being married to other people. This is just one of the reckless decisions that Gavin would make. He soon started taking money out of his pension fund to fund his lifestyle. He then began another affair with a woman called Melanie and started paying for her lifestyle too. His wife, Lisa, would later state that her husband was, quote, dressing like a 20-year-old and working out like mad. Now, the relationship actually eventually crumbled and they split up in 2012. She admitted later that she had only dumped him really as a shock to try and scare him into changing his ways. However, 2 weeks later, he just suddenly vanished. It was the 1st of May that year, and after his wife had kicked him out of the house, he was staying with a friend. That evening at around 10 p.m, he left the house suddenly and didn't tell his friend where he was going and didn't take any belongings. He then never showed up the next day to take one of his children to school.
Oh no.
So Lisa reported him missing to police. Huge searches were undertaken of the local area, but they came up with nothing. There was no sign of the missing father. It would be an agonizing 10 months for his family before a clue turned up. His black Mercedes was discovered at a storage facility. Chillingly, it was covered in blood.
Not a good sign.
Had he been murdered? Now, investigators figured out that the storage facility was linked to a man called John Creech. This was the husband of Chandrika, who Gavin was having the affair with. Disturbingly, they found out that he was a convicted substance dealer. However, there was still no sign of Gavin and still no body. That was until the 26th of October 2014. A hiker's dog alerted its owner to a human skull. It turned out to be Gavin's. An autopsy confirmed that Gavin had passed away from blunt force trauma to the head. His body was wrapped in a duvet and tied up with duct tape. It turned out that in April 2012, John Creech had spotted his wife with Gavin. He told her to break things off, but in May it's believed that the pair had rekindled things and started meeting again. John apparently found out that the two had been seeing each other again and confronted them. He attacked Gavin and literally smashed his skull in.
Oh wow,
Although
that's
John
not good.
would plead not guilty to murder, he was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter. He was given 11 years in prison.
So let me get this straight. This guy literally murdered someone and he was found not guilty of murder but involuntary manslaughter. It sounds like murder to me. I want to know how they found the car and what that day was like. I mean, put it this way, imagine you come across a car that's covered in blood. It would be a day that you wouldn't forget. But yet again, why would you put a bloodied car in like a facility? I don't understand it. It's like whenever I watch these videos, I always think in the back of my head, if I was the person committing that crime, what would I do different? Surely you would take that car as far away as possible from the crime scene, not put it in a storage facility under your name. So you can get mad, take someone's life and only get 11 years. Our justice system is so messed up. It is terrifying though, and it's also the fact he wasn't found guilty of murder but involuntary manslaughter. But he still took his life. Like, he did murder him, like it was murder, full stop. Look, the guy obviously was having an affair, should have been doing that. The wife was told to break it off and she didn't because they ended up getting back together. It doesn't mean that you get to take his life. If anything, you should sit your wife down and say, do you want to know something? I'm not happy with this, I'm leaving. You don't then go out and murder the man she was having an affair with.
The teacher that married her 2nd grade student.
I'm not American, so I don't know what a 2nd grade student is. I'm gonna Google it right now. Okay, just check Google, and Google says that this child is 78 years old. Put this woman in jail.
Mary Kay Letourneau was a married mother of 4 when she first met
Unsurprisingly
Billy
married.
Furlow. She was a teacher at Sherwood Elementary School, and Billy was an 8-year-old in her 2nd grade class. All of Mary Kay's students loved her because she was pretty and sweet and blonde. Mary Kay said that since the moment she met Billy, remember when he was only 8 years old, she knew that he was special and that they kept in contact over the years.
Oh, don't say that. Like, I've actually read a few stories about teachers sleeping with their students. It's bad enough that the kids are 15 and 16, yeah, that's illegal. But this is a 7-8-year-old. What is special about them? Nothing.
Then in 1995, Billy was Mary Kay's student once again. Mrs. Letourneau was 34 years old now and teaching 6th grade. Billy was 12 years old now and in her 6th grade class.
Ugh.
Something that I don't think is brought up enough is that Billy was only a year older than Mary Kay's oldest son.
So she's got a crush on somebody who's the same age as her children. How would she feel if she had a 12-year-old daughter and a 30-year-old man had a crush on a 12-year-old daughter? I was gonna say I don't think she'd be happy, but knowing the way she is, she probably wouldn't care.
Billy was Mary Kay's favorite student. She would invite him over all the time throughout the school year to hang out with her family and play with her kids. They were spending a lot of time together, and Billy was developing quite a serious crush on his teacher. Mary Kay would say that he came on to her first and was pursuing her very hard. But I need to make something very, very clear, and I cannot stress this enough. It is normal for a child to have a crush on their teacher.
I mean, yeah, of course, but it's also the fact that, like, he was coming on to her, but she's the one who accepted it. That isn't how it works. You as an adult and a teacher in that situation, you have to say no, sit them down, say it's not right, stop it. It doesn't matter if he was or wasn't coming on to you, you're the adult, like, you don't let that happen.
It is not normal and it's disgusting for those feelings to be reciprocated.
Exactly.
And as the adult in the situation, Mary Kay should have known what was appropriate and put an end to it. But just to further prove how much of a 12-year-old boy Billy was at this point, he had a $20 bet with another student that he could make Mrs. Letourneau sleep with him. And when 6th grade let out for the summer, Mary Kay started statutory essaying Billy. And by the end of summer, Mary Kay was pregnant with Billy's child. I just cannot stress this enough to you guys. She's almost 35 and he is 12 years old.
Yeah, and she is gonna hopefully end up in a police cell. There's something wrong with them types of people, like they're not normal human. I just don't understand what they could see in a child that young. You know, even being 30 years old, I don't understand why they'd want to date an 18-year-old, let alone a bloody 12-year-old.
And that she's married already with 4 kids, one of whom is extremely close in age to Billy. Well, Mary Kay's husband finds out about what's happening and one of his relatives actually called and reported the abuse, and Mary Kay was arrested for the first time. Mary Kay, who is very pregnant by now, said that she didn't know that what she was doing was a felony. And Billy continued to support her throughout the entire trial. He said that he was not a victim, what they did was completely consensual, and that they were in love.
Well, that's just not how it works. You know, you can consent to it, but you're also underage. If you're 2 14-year-olds, that's different. However, you are what, 12, 13, she's 35. You can believe what you want to believe, but what you're telling people is not the truth.
Mary Kay's husband was awarded a divorce and also full custody of their children, and
Thank
I don't
God.
know if she ever saw her first 4 children ever again. Mary Kay gave birth to her and Billy's first daughter while awaiting sentencing and was sentenced to about 80 days in prison. Following Mary Kay's
80
release,
days?
she was given a no contact order, so she was unable to have any contact of any minor, which included all of her children and Billy.
It's good that the justice system has kind of done something for once. 80 days. She done what she done, which results in her getting pregnant and she gets 80 days in jail. Like, are you having a laugh?
But of course, she quickly broke that no contact order.
Unsurprisingly.
Her and Billy started seeing each other pretty much almost immediately, but they were quickly caught and she was arrested again. This time she was put on the registered SA offender list.
Should have
But
been
by
on it
the
in the
time
first
that she was
place.
caught, she was already pregnant with Billy's 2nd child. This time around, she was sentenced to over 7 years in prison
Thank
and
God.
gave birth to her and Billy's 2nd daughter while in jail. Both of those babies were put in the custody of Billy's mom, by the way. By the time that Mary Kay was released the 2nd time, Billy was 21 years old and he filed to have the no contact order overturned, which was granted by a judge. So him and Mary Kay got married then. He was 22 years old and Mary Kay was 43. They were married for about 12 years before Billy filed for a legal separation, but the two were never able to actually get legally divorced because Mary Kay got really sick and ended up passing away in 2020 at the age of 58 years old. Since Mary Kay's passing, Billy has done a lot of TV interviews, and it seems like he's finally come to terms with the fact that he was a victim. He says quite often that if he was attracted to a 12-year-old while he was in his 30s, he would seek professional help, and that would be extremely disturbing. He also says that if either of his daughters ever said that they were dating their teacher, that he would report it, and it would be gross. I really feel for Billy. I mean, Mary Kay, through the abuse, ruined his teenage years, his 20s, his 30s, really all the best years of his life. I mean, he was a father 2 times over by the age of 14.
Shocking.
That is some serious trauma, and I hope he has a lot of support. As for Mary Kay, I think that she is a narcissist who became fixated on a victim and refused to let go. It also seems like she convinced herself that the two were star-crossed lovers and that she was doing nothing wrong. She actually never ever admitted to doing anything wrong because they were in love. Up until the day she died, she put all the blame on Billy, who, remember, was only 8 years old by the time they met.
I know.
And she honestly had a lot of supporters who believed her when she said that the two were soulmates, which is so freaky and disgusting. And you know, if the genders were reversed, it would be a completely different story.
Exactly. I mean, that was shocking, wasn't it? Whenever you think of true crime, you think of people getting murdered. That's a different type of true crime. Okay, but Mary Kay is so pretty. Have we watched the same video? Like, that video was 5 minutes long, and the only thing you want to say about that is, oh, she's so pretty. Are you thinking about following in her footsteps? A father of 2 by the age of 12 is diabolical. Exactly, it's shocking. Like, it is just abuse. And I don't understand how she got away with it for so long. You know, how was she only put into jail for, what, 80 days? That's shocking. He was 12 and she was 34. And then it's the fact that he believed that they were genuinely meant to be together, and then thank God he came to the realization, oh, I was a victim. We can't blame him. You know, it happened to him whenever he was 8 and 12. That's extreme trauma to go for at that age. 80 days, that's it. Exactly, and it's the fact that she's a woman. If the roles were reversed, she would have been put into jail for life. She should have been. But that's just shocking, isn't it? Like, how does her other family feel? How does her ex-husband and children feel? How do her daughters with him feel?
The case of Brianna Maitland is one that just doesn't make sense. In 2004, she would be last seen leaving work at the Black Lantern Inn. She was just 17 years old. On the 19th of March 2004, she would sit her GED, which I'm guessing for UK viewers is similar to GCSEs. And to celebrate her sitting her GED, her and her mother went out for some lunch and then to run some errands. However, it was running these errands when at the checkout line in a store, her mother claimed that her demeanour shifted. Her mother said something outside caught Brianna's attention and she would go and check it out and then come back in shortly afterward. But her mother said that when she came back, something was off. However, Brianna said that she was fine. Brianna was said to be shaken, unnerved and agitated. But Brianna just said she needed to go home and prepare for her upcoming shift at work that evening. After completing her shift at work, she then left at 20 past 11 that evening. But she never made it home. The next day, March 20th, a police officer would be called to an abandoned house to investigate a strange happening. This house was about a mile away from Brianna's workplace, and what they found was Brianna's car backed up into this house. And inside the car were some of Brianna's belongings, like 2 of her uncashed-in paychecks. But at the time, the police officer didn't know that this car belonged to Brianna, and he just assumed it was abandoned by a drunk driver. And he took the vehicle to a local pound. But for some reason, Brianna wasn't reported missing for about 5 days. But it was on the 25th of March when her parents did report her missing, and they gave police officers photos of Brianna's car. And it was then the police officer that discovered the car backed up into the old house. It clicked in his head and he realised that this was the same car. Brianna's mother, Kelly, believes that she did not do this to her own car and that this car was planted by someone else.
Yeah,
After
of course.
the disappearance, then a bunch of witness statements came out about this car and what it was seen doing before its discovery. Between 11:30 and 12:30 a.m. the next morning, the car was seen with its headlights on. But this witness claimed that there was no one to be seen in or around the car. A second person claimed to see the car again at 12:30 in the morning, and they said that the indicator was flashing. Another witness again came forward and said they drove past the car at 4 a.m. and they said that they saw nobody in or around the car. And believe it or not, police were actually not convinced that foul play was involved. They assumed that Brianna was a runaway. However, in 2007, it was ruled that foul play was involved and that the car had been staged to look like that.
Police had actually investigated this case. They'd received a lot of tips. One of these tips claiming that Brianna had been brutally murdered by 2 known drug dealers, and that her body was dismembered and disposed of on a pig farm. Since their daughter's disappearance, Brianna's family has come out and said that they've received dozens of phone calls of people claiming that Brianna's body was tied to a tree and is at the bottom of a lake. However, in 2016, police were able to take DNA samples from Brianna's car that did come back with a match. However, they've not released any more information about that other than that. With the latest update coming in 2022, again regarding DNA, and police saying that they're pretty close to a breakthrough. But as of today, the case of Brianna Maitland remains unsolved.
I mean, I think something has definitely went on. I mean, put it this way, she was in a shop with her mum, she's seen someone outside, she went outside and then she came in feeling a bit scared. Something has obviously spooked her. And then something else I want to talk about, because I always hear the police say this. You know, whenever the police are investigating a case and they say, you know, we're so close to a breakthrough. What do they mean by that? Like, surely if they're going to say that and then someone who actually committed the crime hears that, they're going to flee. Or maybe that's the whole point. Maybe they want that person to try to leave the country so it means they can arrest them. That case just is foul play written all over it. That's so sad. I can't imagine the not knowing of what happened to your own child. I mean, I want to know why they didn't report her missing for 5 days. I'm telling you right now, even now, if I didn't come home for 5 days within the space of like 20 hours, my mum would have reported me to the police. Yet again, I don't know if she was maybe the type to disappear for a wee while and then come back. You know, she was 17 years old. She was sitting her GCSEs. That is not normal. No, because why do missing people's cases always happen in the 2000s? It's always young girls as well. I've noticed that a lot of women and young girls have went missing in 2000s. In the 1970s, there was a lot of active serial killers and they always got their victims because people wouldn't lock their doors. However, I have realised that a lot of these cases have happened in the 1990s and early 2000s. Was there like a group going around and doing all these crimes? I don't know, it's just weird. You know, I used to always talk about how I wanted to be born like 10 or 15 years before I was actually born. However, now I'm quite happy I wasn't.
Thanks to a deathbed confession, a nearly 24-year-old cold case was closed this week when the bodies of a missing girl and her mother were found. 10-year-old Natasha Alex Carter and her mother Susan disappeared from their home in Beckley, West Virginia in August 2000.
Another 2000
At first,
case.
police initially reported that Alex may have been abducted by her mother. In a press release from December 2021 about the case, the FBI Pittsburgh said, quote, "At the time of their disappearance, Susan Carter and Alex's father were having a custody dispute, and Alex moved in with her mother and mother's new husband," which it's not confirmed that it was actually her mother's new husband, but they moved in, and then not long after that, Susan and Alex disappeared.
Ooh.
But while it was initially suspected as a parental abduction by Susan, after the two remained missing, an investigation into other possibilities ensued, but unfortunately, the case went cold. In 2021, the FBI reopened the cold case and started looking into the man Susan and Alex were living with, Larry Webb.
They weren't
Pictures of
looking
his
into
home were
him in
done
the first
2022
place.
and 2023, and they found a bullet embedded in the wall of what was Alex's bedroom. The bullet was tested for DNA, and it confirmed that blood on it belonged to Alex. In October 2023, Larry Webb was indicted on first-degree murder charges for Alex's death, despite Alex and Susan's bodies never being found. Due to his deteriorating health, though, Webb was not arrested until April 12, 2024, but since then he was being held without bond. On Monday, he had a medical episode, after which, in a, quote, come to Jesus moment on his deathbed, he confessed to authorities what he had done. Webb claimed that on August 8, 2000, he had gotten into an argument with Susan over money. He said he was missing some cash and believed that she had taken it and spent it. The argument escalated and he shot her, and then he ended up shooting Alex so there would be no witnesses. Webb then wrapped their bodies in bed linens and placed them in the basement that night. Over the next 2 nights, he dug a shallow grave in the woods on his property, eventually burying them in his clothes and then walking free for the next 20 years. On April 22, 2024, Larry Webb died at Mount Olive Correctional Complex, and 6 hours later, Susan and Alex's remains were found at his property in Beckley. Unfortunately, now that Webb is dead, he cannot be charged in connection to their deaths. At least now they have been found and can be properly laid to rest. Alex's father, Rick Lafferty, said after the discovery, quote, "It's kind of a sad day, but also a happy day because I can bring my baby home."
I feel like with a lot of these cases that eventually are solved, there's always serious failures in the police. Her and her ex-husband had a massive falling out and she moved in with another man and then randomly disappears not too long afterwards. It's like the answers are screaming in your face. They lived with him and they somehow couldn't put it together. I mean, look, I can understand why they might suspect the ex-husband. However, why wouldn't they also search the property of the man who they were living with? You know, they were living with him and then just randomly disappeared, and then it's the fact he got away with it for 20 years. They didn't search his property 24 years ago, even though they were living there. That's what I'm saying. Like, it literally is a failure in the police, and I don't understand how they keep failing in all these videos. You know, all these cases are eventually solved. They always have a massive failure with the police. Like, I don't know, maybe he was a very manipulative person, or maybe he had a really good alibi. But, you know, if they've just moved in and then they disappear, surely you should search the property and, like, the gardens. It just blows my mind as to why they didn't. I bet the father had to deal with a lot of accusations and suspiciousness because of the custody battle. Glad the right person was found. I mean, the right person wasn't found to confess and literally died. So, like, they've got no justice whatsoever. And then yet again, I do feel bad for the dad because obviously they've had a custody battle split and then the wife and child had disappeared. People are obviously going to think he done it and probably accuse him for the rest of his life for it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the McCann family. You know, obviously a lot of people think that the parents done it. You know, whatever happened, then they hid the body. But it also makes you think, you know, what happens if they actually didn't have anything to do with it? I kind of do feel bad for them in that way. But then it's like, I understand why people might think it's them because of course, you know, that's the parents. They did act a bit suspicious. I just feel bad for that father because it's the fact that like he knows he didn't do it, but people think he done it. Then yet again, he doesn't have any answers. And then it's the fact that like that man's house didn't get searched and he's the one who had their bodies in the back garden the whole time. Like, it's just insanity. Well, anyways, guys, let's leave that video there. That's some creepy true crime TikTok cases. If you see me look at more cases, let me definitely will. Press bigger, subscribe, and see you all tomorrow for another video.